I'm Kirk Williamson, president of the Columbia Basin Badger Club. Welcome to today's special and very timely Badger Forum. The Badger Club was founded in 2008. The founding members wanted to provide a community forum for vigorous but civil discussion of important topics of the day. The Badger Club does not take a stand on any candidate or issue, but our speakers and our members certainly do. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Mark Smith, author and chairman of our program committee, who will be the moderator for today's program. Mark?
Well, thank you very much, Kirk, and good afternoon to our viewers here in the United States, and a good late evening to our friends in Kyiv, where it's 10 p.m. A year and a half ago, in April 2023, the Badger Club presented a unique forum, a postcard from Kyiv, featuring my good friend of 30 years now, Dr. Alex Biryukov, professor of constitutional law at the National University in Kyiv. At the time, the Russian invasion of Ukraine was not quite a year old, and I and others wanted to get a firsthand account of what had and what was at the time going on. I first met Alex when I was director of economic development in Birmingham, Alabama in the mid-1990s. Alex was a Fulbright scholar doing research at NYU and at Samford University in Birmingham. Birmingham had a sister city relationship with a small industrial city in the Donbass, now sadly under Russian occupation. And it was helpful to have someone like Alex available and willing to help us overcome the language and cultural differences. That first postcard from Kyiv program was riveting. Alex had witnessed the fighting to the north of Kyiv at the start of the war, and even taken pictures from his apartment window, which he shared with us. The war has now ground on for another year and a half with no prospect of any end in sight. Indeed, Russia has attempted to destroy Ukraine's energy network, schools, hospitals, with missiles and drones obtained from Iran and North Korea. And there's now a prospect of even widening the war. We've asked Alex to join us again, but this time we are very pleased to announce that he'll be joined by his daughter, Margarita Biryukova, who has recently returned to Kyiv from the war zone near Mykolaiv in the south. Both Alex and Margarita are highly accomplished and educated observers of conditions around them. So now let me introduce them, and Alex and Margarita, if you'll turn your camera on. Dr. Alex Biryukov teaches private international law at the Institute of International Relations at the National University of Kyiv. He studied law in Moscow and was selected as a Fulbright scholar to do research at NYU and the Cumberland School of Law at Samford University in Birmingham. His most recent work, published in America, is titled International Law and Frozen Conflicts in Eastern Europe and the Caucasus. He has served as a legal advisor to USAID, the European Commission, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. His daughter, Margarita Biryukova, holds a Master of Law in European and International Law, specializing in the protection of human rights, from the Europa Institute of Saarland University in Germany. She graduated from the American John Cabot University in Rome, where she spent a semester abroad at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Margarita has worked for a number of international organizations and projects, including the International Criminal Court, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and the National Democratic Institute. She has experience working in the field of education, security, mine action, and human rights in the Netherlands, Ukraine, Austria, and Uganda. Alex and Margarita are sharing the same computer from their apartment in Kyiv, and both will make some remarks before we open the program to questions from our viewing audience. So with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce Alex Biryukov and Margarita Biryukova.
Thank you, Mark, for presentation. This is a real gladness to be your guest and come back to the discussion that we already started last year. And Unfortunately, the war still in place, and everybody in Ukraine suffers. But let me start from my honor to thank all Americans for support and help. Without this support, Ukraine would not exist already. This is serious and this is true. Let me just remind what happened since the last time I was a guest at the program. The invasion was started in 2014 when Russia, one of the biggest country in the world, occupied 20% of Ukraine. Ukraine is the largest country on European continent. The second invasion happened in 2022. So-called special military operation was launched as they say, because Ukraine planned to invade and occupy Russia. You may see on the map how ridiculous it looks like. Just to give you a sense what kind of the country by territory, you may see on the map and compare the northern part of the USA, and you may see how big Ukraine is. The initial plans of Russia was to seize the Kyiv city within 3 days and the whole Ukraine within 1 week. It didn't happen, and normally we say in this regard. I mentioned last time, and still I may again say that we call it that this is the third year of this 3 days war that lasts 400 years, particularly since the Russia appeared on the map in 1721. Kyiv region and northern part of Ukraine returned back within several months after the invasion. You may see this is in yellow color. The front line, that is the border of Ukraine and from one side, and Russia and Belarus from the other side, as long as 2,450 kilometers. Just to compare, it looks like the distance between the Warsaw in Poland on the northern part of the continental part of European Union to Barcelona on the south. So this is quite big territory that we need to protect. According to the Ukrainian Research Institute based in Washington, D.C., this is actually a Russian holy war against West. In 2020, I have written a chapter in a collective monograph published in San Francisco Golden Gate University, discussed the policy of Russia in the region. And we call it as hybrid war. It includes ideological, political, economical, psychological, legal, cyber, and other operations against neighbor states, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, Baltic states, and some others. Now we are talking about two wars in Ukraine, conventional war and terrorist war. And some words about the current situation on the front line. There is a dramatic lack of weapons now in Ukraine. That gives the Russians daily occupy new territories. They use tactics that called as burned land, developed in Chechnya during the Second Chechen War by using so-called carpet bombing, also known as saturation bombing. Russia, till now, uses the Soviet ammunition reserves, tanks, bullets, shells, missiles, bomb, grenades. And Ukraine depends on the supplying of the ammunition from our Western partners and the democratic countries coalition. But still, it's not enough. Last year, pro-Ukrainian coalition promised to supply with 1 million shells within 1 year. But actually, we received about 300,000. For example, South Korea, according to intelligence estimates, has provided with about 6 million artillery shells. I need to say that Russia violates all Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols that are the basis of the humanitarian law of armed conflicts, containing minimum standards of human treatment and fundamental guarantees of respect to individuals victimized by armed conflicts. Everybody in Ukraine knows that the Ukrainian war prisoners and civilians who were kidnapped are tortured, and the Red Cross international organization representatives do not have any access to Russian prisons to monitor the treatment. Terrorism is one of the methods that are used in modern hybrid wars. Russians daily attack peaceful cities to destroy every means of life, infrastructure, objects, energy, heating facilities, water supply, food warehouses, medical organizations, maternity hospitals, restaurants, schools, universities, supermarkets, post offices, everything that are used by civilians. You may see on the picture the result of so-called carpet bombing. They ruin everything, and then they come into the dead places. Actually, this is pictures that is normal after the bombing by Russians. Actually, let me recall the last figures says that there are almost 3,000 of such town, villages, and other places destroyed by Russia. And this is how the victims, the Ukrainian soldiers, suffer in the in Russian prisons, and they look after the exchanging of the prisoners. Actually, this is the genocide war. And this is how looks the Kyiv and the other places after the bombing. They try to kill as many civilians as they can. They also kidnap children. Actually, there are thousands of those, and the parents cannot return them back. Actually, there is no a single airport in Ukraine open and operating. The problem is the same as it was in February 2022. The sky over Ukraine is opened for terrorist attack. Like today, the life of 40 million country is totally destroyed. Practically all family and every family in Ukraine suffered. Some families lost their parents, relatives. Some families lost the houses, properties, and all Ukrainians lost the opportunity to plan their future. Actually, what I just noticed, on the third year of this war, the people in Ukraine are trying to be afraid. Ukrainians become fatalists. We woke in the morning, and this is already a good luck. On the picture, you may see the results of the bombing during the previous night. We receive such reports every morning, and you may see that this is one of the biggest, the largest air attack that happened on the Independence Day just several weeks ago. Till now, we already still suffer from the power cut, and still the Ukrainian specialists in energy sphere trying to restore the destroyed infrastructure objects. And you may see how many the military objects were in the air of Ukraine. There are different kinds of missiles. You may see the Iranian Shaheds, and Ukraine cannot hit all those targets because of the lack of the anti-missiles systems. The Russians counted that they may break the spirit of Ukrainians by terrorizing. If during the first year we tried to survive, now we are trying to adjust to a new reality, to live under ongoing air attacks. Air sirens are several times a day and practically during every and all nights. And you may see the results, how the missiles, the Iranian Shaheds are moving over the Ukrainian, changing the routes, and we can follow these movements in our telephones, and we have a good applications in telephone, and everybody can follow the situation in the air. When there is a warning about air attack, we spend normally the night in corridors. We are following the instructions, so-called two walls rule. We need to hide ourselves behind two walls. When the sirens appeared, showing that there is a threat of Russian missiles, the public transportation stops. Metro becomes the shelters. You may see the picture how it looks when the people trying to hide themselves in metro, because metro stations are the best, safest place to hide in. Ukrainian depends on many things, small and big things. One of those is electricity. The life without electricity means problems with reaching to the workplaces during the day, problems with water and heating supply, access to internet, using elevators to come to 13th, 17th floors. Still in Ukraine, curfew, and still in place. All and everybody should stay in their apartments, and should not go outside from the midnight to 5 o'clock in Kyiv region. In other places, this period of time is different and much longer. The trips become problematic within the city and between the cities. this is how it looks the Kyiv's streets when when the power cut. Every small office should supply with electricity with generators. The metro becomes the places where the children may continue studying, and for instance, in Kharkiv region, the underground schools under construction. That means that we're already getting ready for the long time of such situation, because we do not see the end of this law at the nearest future. Ukrainian, I continued teaching. This is Kyiv University after one of the attacks, and how it looks before the war. I, as a professor at the Kyiv University, I continued teaching remotely. And actually, last spring, there was the first time in the history of Ukraine when the students who did not visit classrooms graduated from the university. Actually, they were admitted to the university in the year of COVID pandemic. The Ukrainian stance, we do understand that there would be no place for Ukrainians in Russia and no life with Russians. But we strongly believe in victory. Ukrainians used to say that we may stay without electricity, but this is better than to win Russia, live with Russia. We may stay without water. We can live in ruined houses, but it's better than to live with Russia and to be a part of Russia. People do not give up. We use every opportunity to support our army, continue donating, and we donate the divisions of army troops to cover their needs, evacuation, cars, drones, medicine. So every Ukrainian participate in the life to help army to protect Ukraine and to reach our victory. I stop here, and this is our how it looks Ukraine and in front of Russia. And I would like to finish with the a sort of quote of the Otto Bismarck. He was a German chancellor during World War I, who said the agreement with Russia is not worth the paper it is written on. This is about the negotiations with Russia and getting any agreements with Russia. We do not believe. And negotiations with Russia, that means actually this is not about peace. This is about the ceasefire. That's only. Thank you. Margarita?
Good afternoon, dear participants. So I'd like to start my part with covering a bit of digital aspect. As was said previously, we are adapting to the new realities, so we need to make our lives as comfortable as possible under the current circumstances. With the air raid sirens, which happen quite often every day, every night, we have a special application on our phone that notifies us when there is a threat, and actually there is a different notification if there is a ballistic missile coming to your specific city, so you have enough time to hide. We have an application in the middle, you can see in the slide, that gives you a notice, a 20-minute notice when the power cut is coming, so you have time to prepare for this. And also on the right side of the slide, you can see the schedule of the power cuts. All of the light gray and dark gray circles, not circles, rectangulars, they mean that there's no electricity in your at this time.
Every day of the week.
Exactly. Here's the map of Ukraine and contaminated areas. All of the triangles, they mean that those territories are contaminated with explosive ordnance, with mines, with unexploded ordnance, with all sorts of hazards. And the shaded areas are those areas which were occupied. That means that they're also hazardous for civilians. And that actually explains why I joined Mine Action Field. I used to work in international organizations, in development sector. However, with the full-scale invasion, I understood that I'm needed in a different place. And I've joined Mine Action with an international organization. Currently, I work for an NGO, international NGO, which is called Danish Refugee Council. And here I would like to give a disclaimer that right now I'm giving a speech in personal capacity, not professional. So for the work that I was doing, I had to move to Mykolaiv to be closer to the front line. I was responsible for explosive ordnance risk education activities of my organization in the south of Ukraine. And here you can see a couple of pictures of Mykolaiv. On the left side, you can see the Oblast administration, which was impacted by a missile in the first month of the full-scale invasion, and this is how it stays until now. On the right side, it's another damaged building, also a very important building in Mykolaiv city. And despite the damages, it was actually turned into a humanitarian hub. So people would bring clothes and other stuff for people who are displaced and who fled the homes without anything. Mykolaiv region is close to Kherson Oblast and Kherson city. And this is a typical landscape that you see in that region. We used to go there on a daily basis to do risk education sessions. And again, these are classical landscapes that you can see. Frankly speaking, it was quite challenging, psychologically challenging to be going to these kind of places because you see these kind of damages, devastating damages. You hear the stories from people who went through the horrors of occupation, and without having goosebumps on your body, you couldn't listen to these stories. But at the same time, I felt like it's an important thing to do, an important job to do, and I'm helping my country, so I continued doing this kind of job. On the left, that's a picture of me in our personal protective equipment, because the safety situation in Mykolaiv and in Kherson is not that good. We're civilians, so we need to protect ourselves while working in the field. And on the right, this is a building where we actually held a risk education session. It doesn't look that good, but it was literally the only building that survived in that city, in that town, in that village, actually, where we could hold the session. These are the hazards that you can see. This is a piece of a missile under vegetation, and these kind of surprises, unfortunately, are all over Ukraine. And our deminers, my organization also does clearance. We use protective equipment, as you can see on in the picture. And just today, unfortunately, there was an attack on humanitarian workers. You can see the result. My friend who works in the International Committee of the Red Cross, he unfortunately lost his colleagues. But this is unfortunately a situation that happens quite often. Humanitarian workers are targeted, and also people who are, for example, queuing for humanitarian aid or water supply, they're also targeted. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, I think we are now closing our presentation and ready for any questions.
But we believe the good will win, and the empire of evil should stop and release Ukraine and the whole world. Stop threatening the whole world. Thank you. Mark?
Well, thank you both very, very much. Gosh, that was a amazing presentation, and I've been to, as I think you know, I've been to Ukraine once back in the 1990s, and the country looks familiar, but boy, the landscape is sure a lot different. We have now it's question time, and remember that you can ask your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I just checked and there aren't any yet, but please send your questions in. In the meantime, I'll ask Alex, what has changed most in your daily lives since you spoke to us almost a year and a half ago?
Again, the perception of where we were stuck in, we was thinking about how to survive. We are concerned how much more time we will live in such unhuman circumstances. We are tired to hear every morning the reports about how many people were killed during the night and during the day. We are worried about the victims, people who killed, and my questions every time I directed to international organizations. Where are UN? Where are other international organizations? And this is already 11th year of this war and 2.5 years of this cruel, unprovoked, real war. And there is still no a clear vision what should be happen tomorrow.
If I may add, when I look back and try to recall the feelings I had at the beginning of the full-scale invasion in the first couple of weeks, even couple of months, and I compared that feeling to what I'm feeling right now, I can confirm that the fear has gone completely. And we are only becoming more resistant to any difficulties, because when we get to the point when we feel like it cannot get any worse, it actually gets worse, but we still adapt. We adapt and we continue surviving. We continue with our jobs, with trying to see how we can support our country, how we can be useful. And yeah, that inspires. When you focus on the things where you can contribute, that really keeps us going.
And let me just add that one of the journalists, I guess, the foreign journalist just noticed that after every air attack, when people just hiding in the metro, and the first thing that they do when they come out from the metro after the release of the threat, they give the telephone and try and donate as a gratefulness to the army that they saved the life of those who were hiding. So we are firm, and there are no hesitation about, and no the belief in our victory doesn't change, even growing more. And we believe that we will, with support of the Western countries and the USA, especially USA, because this is the most bigger assistant in our struggle, in our fight.
One of our viewers asks, how have people in Ukraine responded to the Ukrainian incursion into Kursk?
Well, it raised our spirit. We can say that, yeah, sometimes it feels like we're in dead end and there is no hope. And when this happens, a lot of people felt motivated and inspired.
Alex, you mentioned that you were teaching virtually, and I was wondering, has the number of, well, I'm sure the number of students has probably declined because many of them are serving in the military, but has the war impacted what you teach?
Actually, I teach the same courses because I'm a private law professor. But I already 2 months I was hired by USAID project operating in Ukraine to help a Minister of Justice to improve the sanction legislation in Ukraine. And I work with international expert who is a Canadian, but native Ukrainian. And we both are working how to improve this legislation. As to teaching, this month, actually the first time since the war, the full range invasion, we are coming back slowly to the classrooms. And we have master programs that are, the students are studying remotely because they can be not in Kyiv, in other places, in the western places of Ukraine and other countries of Europe, US, North America. But we admit new students and we trying to bring them to classroom. And what the university and my institute does, we prepared the basement under our building as a shelter. And my administration trying to arrange that all the students, when there is a threat of missiles attack, they move to a shelter to save, because my institute and university thinks about safety. So we are trying to come back. So this is what I already mentioned, that we're trying to adjust to a new reality. And we understand that it would not stop tomorrow, exactly tomorrow.
One of our viewers has written in and asked, what are the top 3 things that the West can do to help Ukraine?
First, ammunition. But first, again, I just mentioned, this is the claim from the first day of full range invasion in February 2022. We claim, please close the sky, close the sky. Already 2.5 years already passed, and we have totally open sky. They feel free. They use the guided missiles and they change the targets, but we have American anti-missiles Patriot that are not many and not enough, because we have 5 nuclear atomic power stations. We have universities, the dams, and Margarita may explain what happens in Kakhovka. They destroyed the river hydro power station. We have a lot of things to protect, not just military objects, but still we need more anti-missiles systems, ammunition, and that does not allow us to go ahead. We're just closely trying to hide from the rain of the missiles. This is a rain, thousands, and still situation does not change, unfortunately.
From the humanitarian perspective, I'd like to add that there is a big need for funding for humanitarian projects implemented by different international, but also national non-governmental organizations. As I have shown on the map, Ukraine is heavily contaminated with explosive ordnance, meaning that a lot of funding should go and a lot of time should be dedicated to clear the land, to primarily return the lands for agricultural use. But also within this big crisis, humanitarian crisis, we have smaller crises, unfortunately, as was mentioned, Kakhovska dam destruction. So during the full-scale invasion, Kakhovska hydro power plant was hit, and it caused tremendous suffering. It flooded.
Ecological disaster.
Yes, the consequences were catastrophic because people had to flee because of the flood, and a lot of casualties happened. And many organizations, they participated in the first response. They tried to find some shelters, temporary camps for people who were left with no homes. Tried to assist all of those people who fled as much as possible. So humanitarian field, humanitarian organizations always are in need for funding.
Well, that's a good segue into our next question asked by Brett. Thank you for discussing the trauma. What medical care is available to innocent civilians? Medical supplies and equipment? Are medical schools still functioning?
I just make a small remark that medical institutions, organizations are a special target of Russians. They are trying to hit. One of the examples of the children, the biggest maybe in Europe, the children's hospital that was hit in the middle of Kyiv. It was happened maybe 2 months ago. And still they are trying to hit the medicine objects.
Yes, the mental health and psychological support is a very critical topic, I would say. A lot of people are trying to prove that they don't need it, but we actually all are in need of that. There are facilities, government facilities that they can that provide this kind of help, but also a lot of international organizations and international projects that are helping with that. Sometimes the problem is that there are services available, but people are not aware of them, and this is what the international organizations and different alliances and clusters are working on, and also the UN is trying to map all of those services so that people with these kind of problems, but also victims of explosive ordnance, they know how to receive help and they know what they're entitled to.
Eric, Margarita, this question I think is for you. Eric asks, when Margarita worked in the southern Ukraine, was it under Russian control? It appears to me, based on U.S. news reports, that risks are much greater in the south than in the north or the western Ukraine.
Yes. So when I moved to Mykolaiv, it was not occupied. But in the first couple of months of the full-scale invasion, the Russians tried to encircle the city, but they never succeeded. So they were pushed towards Kherson, which is about, I think, 60 kilometers from Mykolaiv.
60, yes.
Yes, Kherson is divided by the river. So the half of the city was already liberated, but the other half was still under the Russian control. Yes, it was quite close to the front line. But as a humanitarian, this is exactly where you're supposed to be. Also speaking of the safety situation in the south, and particularly in Mykolaiv, it was much more volatile compared to Kyiv because a lot of ballistic missiles and other types of missiles and drones which were launched from Crimea, it only took them 2 minutes to land in Mykolaiv. So sometimes no air alert would notify people that the danger is coming, but you hear the explosion first, and then you realize, oh, there is an air alert. So yes, when I was there, it was already liberated.
Great. Sally asks, adaptation to the situation must really be a challenge. What do you want us to understand about your future hopes for Ukraine?
Emotional younger generation represented.
Yes. Well, I guess we're all in the swing situation, let's say. Sometimes we feel very optimistic that things are gonna end soon and we have the future. Sometimes it doesn't feel this way. But yes, I guess the adaptation mechanism works quite well for all of us. Yeah, I've noticed from my personal experience that I've stopped making any long-term plans because I think there's a high probability there I'm doomed if I have certain plans and because of the war, they're not gonna come to true. So that part I had to give up, but at the same time, we focus on what we have today. We try to donate as much as possible to the Ukrainian army, do something useful for the country through our jobs.
Yesterday, I saw on our television the interview with the soldier defender, Ukrainian defender, female, and the question was simple: what you are dreaming about now? And she just answered that my dream now is to start dreaming tomorrow, because there are the life for Ukrainians just stopped. That's the problem. For me, I'm not a young. Somehow we adjust to this, but the younger generation, this is a tragedy for some of and tragedy for generations. Unfortunately.
Right, and that doesn't even, I mean, the other thing that fits in there is the future rebuilding. The costs is going to be enormous, and it's just incredible as to how long it's going to take for the war to end, and then you have the rebuilding after that. It's anyway. I saw in the New York Times this morning that the war had reduced the civilian workforce by about a quarter, leading to the hiring of women for previously all-male jobs. I was wondering how you felt that might affect the civilian workforce in the future. And just to follow up, are there more foreign-born workers now working in Ukraine? And what is the possible cultural impact on that for the future?
The labor forces, or labor market, it's a real problem in Ukraine, because still I need to say that during the 2.5 years, the professional soldiers are already in place. Unfortunately, we lost a lot. Now we have volunteers who volunteer to come and to protect the country. And now we see a lot of advertisement that the metro station hiring the females to drive the trains, and many positions on the labor market are substituted by females. They drive, they're in agricultural area. A lot of males work are done by women's, but this is not a tragedy for people. and somehow we will deal with it. But the closest target is just stop war, stop killing Ukrainians. And we will survive, we will do our best to revive the country, rebuild and do. But this is the biggest problem and this is a psychological problem, is the deadlock in our thoughts. Because every morning we will just account how many people were killed during the last night.
Yes, if I may add, this kind of shift is very visible from the mine action angle. First of all, it was always mine action or clearance was always militarized. So people were not aware that actually international organizations and national organizations can do that, and civilians can be taught to do clearance. And additional stigma that existed before was that it's only male job. Whereas right now, as you said, yes, we're changing that because we're forced, obviously. But yeah, there are more and more females joining different professions, which were not, let's say, that popular among females before.
Margarita was a team leader of 14 personnel just doing the demining, and every several days she needed to solve the problems how to hire instead of the males who volunteered to go to protect and to go to the front line.
I want to get this. Well, I want to get this question in before our program is over. I would like to know how our viewers can contribute to Margarita's NGO. Either you can send that information to us and we can post it, or if it's available right now, you can tell us how we can help.
Thank you so much for this question. This is very much appreciated. So I can send a link to the organization that I work for, and there is a donate option on the website. I can share that link after this event, if that is okay.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah. Thank you so much again.
Well, I've been thinking about this question. I know that you follow the news in the United States as closely as we follow the news in Ukraine. And, you know, as a longtime political junkie, I was wondering if anything has changed in your expectation from the upcoming US election following the Democratic convention and the nomination of Vice President Harris.
Let me just share the results of my discussions with my wife and Margarita's mother. And she said exactly that we believe in American democracy. It does not matter who will be the president of this country, because the Americans, as electors, they make the final decisions, not just to elect, but between the election that doesn't happen in Ukraine, for instance, there are less influence on the policy of the USA. So the USA, as I think, this is a country where the people decide. And for me, it doesn't matter. It's going to be one president or another candidate will be selected. But what is going on in America, as I noticed, that decisions are well done, discussed, and the best decisions that made. And the one person may influence, but not dramatically. So everybody follows in the world follows the elections in the USA, because USA is a leader in the world, and especially in this world where the totalitarian regimes unite and they try to lead the world. Without America, without USA, what democracy may lose. I may share some other thoughts, but the main idea is just this. So we rely on Americans, their choice, and then influence on the American policy.
A number of people are asking about the fact that perhaps the Kursk region could be used in bargaining for an end of the war. And I was wondering about how you feel about a negotiated settlement.
Negotiation with Russia.
Yes, or whoever the third party would be.
It doesn't matter. Actually, frankly, I do not see any perspectives in the near future that Russia can sit and start negotiated in order to reach any solution to this, not a problem, a war. I do not see any signs of this. So on this stage, any country, any person, any international arena player can help with this. But actually, here I quite pessimist because Putin, other leaders of Russia, and Russians, they do not show any willing to stop the war and to reach any solutions, even discuss any solution. You may see that the Russians and their leadership are talking about capitulation of Ukraine. This is the main condition of any further agreement. And that means that Ukrainians should die and Ukraine should disappear from the map. We cannot agree with this. And this is not a bargaining condition.
But before we close, let me give you each a short opportunity to make some closing comments.
Well, I'll start. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's very important for us that we're heard and we can share our experience. And this is the best opportunity for us to make people outside of Ukraine understand what we feel and what we're going through. And this way we feel supported. And yes, it really motivates the support that we notice from the outside of the country. So thank you very much, and thank you for your support.
Again, I also would like to thank, this is a great opportunity, not even that I had such opportunity to see my friends. Thank you, Mark. But still, we thank, and my message is simple. We stand. We will stand with the help of Americans and the USA as a leader in the international world. And this is one of the conditions that the good should win and the evil, empire of evil should disappear in this form. We are not talking about disappearance of Russia. We let them still live like they would like. But in this format, in this nature, Russia should disappear because Russia, this is a source of threat, to problems to the whole world, and they cause a lot of disasters suffering to many people, not in Ukraine, in other places. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you so much, Alex. It's so great to see you again, and I hope we can do this again very soon. Margarita, it's so nice to meet you, and I'm so impressed with what you're doing, and I guess I'm not surprised, but I'm really impressed.
Thank you, Mark, and our thanks again to Alex and Margarita for another very important, challenging, and very interesting program.